Welcome into the Thursday edition of Robbie and Rex Road, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, brought to you by Chuck McDowell and Medical House Calls, Middle Tennessee's best medical care in the comfort and safety of your own home. For more information, go to medicalhousecalls.com. Medical House Calls, where the nearest clinic is your home. We are live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Robbie Stanley, that's me, Joe Rexroad, Nick Keyser here with you on this Thursday morning. Joseph, how we doing? What's going on?
Just glorious. Doing glorious if you can do glorious.
Glorious, huh? That's good. It's pretty good.
Yeah. Guess I'm feeling the Preds home game coming on.
Wow, must be. Nick Keyser, how we doing? What's going on?
I'm just glad it's draft day, fellas.
Thank God.
Get this thing over with, man. I'm excited to see what the Two-Tone Blue do this evening. Will it be Joe Alt? Will they trade away and surprise everybody? I have no idea.
Well, I'm glad you have no idea because I don't either. We'll see what happens tonight. It's going to be fun to watch. The first round of the NFL draft finally here. We're going to get through that, obviously, throughout the show today. The Predators and Canucks coming up in Game 3. Joe, I was waltzing around all over the place yesterday, went to the airport, met up with some of the Nashville Predators when they landed. After that, went to the downtown Nashville area and met up with the Vancouver Canucks in their hotel. Lots of media availabilities yesterday, late into the night.
Yeah, you were all over the place. What's the best quote of the day?
The best quote of the day, probably Rick Tocchet talking about how he was going through about how good Nashville fans are. And I think he was about to say, like, they start throwing stuff at you. He's like, well, they don't really start throwing stuff at you. But I love Nashville fans. It's going to be a raucous environment. And he wants his team to, quote, love it and embrace it. That was good. I love me some Rick Tocchet. Good quote.
Yeah, you gotta like Rick Tocchet,
yeah,
right?
He was good on TNT. Good stuff. Really like me some Rick Tocchet. How about those Dallas Stars down 0-2 to the Vegas Golden Knights? Got to be in a tough spot right there. Vegas just rolling through again. Fun stuff.
Life comes at you fast, you know. Things just sort of go a certain way, and all of a sudden, Mark Stone's feeling good, and Vegas looks like world beaters.
They do.
Amazing.
Well, by the way,
yeah, that's a surprise, man.
On the Predators side of the bracket, L.A. takes down Edmonton last night. So you got the Preds and Canucks obviously at 1-1, and now you've got L.A. and Edmonton at 1-1 too. So what a long way from this happening. Long way from this happening, but what a story that would be if it was Preds Kings in round 2. That'd be something.
That would be something. Meanwhile, every year it's like Toronto scored a goal last night. I watched most of that game, and it's, they're just going nuts in there, and they got the fans outside the arena going nuts, and I'm like, when are you people ever going to learn? They're just going to tease you. They're just going to tease you, and they're going to lose this series, which was clearly what's going to happen.
Oh, yeah. And it's, I think, more hilarious every year when it happens, just to be totally honest with you. I really enjoy it, and it's very good stuff. And then on the other side of things, Joe, my beloved Miami Heat and Eric Spoelstra doing it again.
Yeah.
Going on the road and taking down the Boston Celtics. No Jimmy Butler, no Terry Rozier. Still getting it done.
Wild, man. Obviously Tyler Herro was great, but you still have, it's just, what's his name hitting the huge threes? The guy from last year.
Caleb Martin.
A couple less. Yes, Caleb Martin coming in, hitting big shots. In the fourth quarter, it was just like, well, they're just going to hit every shot then, I guess, huh? They're just going to hit every three. They're going to force a little bit of help somewhere, move the ball, and just hit the three. I did not see that one coming.
Great coaching. Great coaching matters. He's a great coach. There's no question.
It does matter.
It matters. We got a lot to get into in the program today. Alex Dheghy from the Tennessean will join us at 7 o'clock. He was live in Vancouver for games 1 and 2. We'll get his perspective on the series to this point, and the series still yet to come for the Predators against the Canucks. And like we said, it is NFL Draft Day. The first round is tonight. Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports will join us from 8 to 8:30 for his weekly visit as well. So looking forward to that. Joe, I'm looking through the FanDuel Sportsbook odds right now. And, of course, there are odds on every pick almost conceivable out there in the draft. I'm looking at the odds for the number 7 overall pick. There will be no surprise that Joe Alt is the favorite at minus 195, according to the FanDuel Sportsbook. Do you want to take a guess at who is number 2 on the highest odds for the number 7 overall pick which currently belongs to the Tennessee Titans.
Don't tell me it's some quarterback.
It is not a quarterback.
Okay.
Although a quarterback is 6th on the list, or actually tied for 5th, but I would imagine that's just in case there's a trade back scenario.
Okay. I'll guess Brock Bowers.
Brock Bowers not on the list. The number 2 player at number 7 overall at plus 500 odds behind Joe Alt, J.C. Latham out of Alabama.
Okay.
And then there's Adunze at number 3. So it's Alt, Latham, Adunze, Neighbors, Fashanu, and then McCarthy is the way the odds tell you number 7 will go for the FanDuel Sportsbook.
Interesting. Yeah, look, there's a lot of talk about Latham. I think there is a scenario tonight where I guess I'd be surprised if the scenario involved the Titans choosing Latham over Alt. But I think there is a scenario where Joe Alt goes and the Titans take J.C. Latham at 7.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the least satisfying outcome, I would think, for Titans fans if it were to come to that, because you're talking about taking a guy who most people, obviously a very good prospect, very good player. Most people, he's been a right side guy the whole time, and some people think he might be a guard.
Yeah.
A guard, but also, I mean, a really good player. So, personally, if Alt were to be gone, that to me means that one of those receivers is there, and that would be my choice for the Titans.
It's interesting. Also on the FanDuel Sportsbook, the first offensive line drafted, Alt is the favorite at minus 170. Latham was, and by was, I mean 20 seconds ago, was minus like 108. And in the last 20 seconds on FanDuel Sportsbook has moved up to plus 105. So more money coming in on Joe Alt as we speak to be the first offensive lineman draft. I mean, the odds just changed directly in front of me as I was reading it. It was wild.
Real-time odds. Okay, there we go. Yeah, I don't know if you listened to the Joe Alt interview on Jared. It was good. It was a good interview. It just seems, obviously it's when you have the same name over and over for so long. First of all, this entire process of leading into the draft is just, to me, it's just, I mean, thank goodness there's actual sports going on so you can, divert your attention. But it's just been repeated so many times, it gets kind of monotonous. But I still think it's a great outcome for them if that's how it goes tonight.
I agree. Speaking of the LA Chargers, so we've been talking a lot about the Chargers, what they can do. The highest odds for the number 5 overall pick, J.C. Latham at plus 250, which I find interesting. So Latham at plus 250, the highest odds, then Malik Neighbors at plus 340 at number 2, Alt at number 3.
Well, that's the thing. And honestly, I mean, that's more of what they need. They need a right tackle.
Exactly.
So they have a left tackle. And that's why, and I suppose you could look at it different ways. You could move somebody. You could look at Alt and still say, yeah, actually better as a right tackle long term. I mean, to me, he seems like a left tackle, but I've seen left tackles. Jack Conklin was a left tackle, great left tackle in college. And I was dubious the entire draft process, all these people saying he's a right tackle. I'm like, guys, go watch him shut down Joey Bosa on an island, but he was better as a right tackle. So, I mean, maybe that's the case, but Latham would seem logical. Also, it seems like a little bit of a reach to take Latham at 5. So
I agree.
Is Harbaugh all along trying to just move down here? Or, I mean, gosh, take a freaking receiver. You need one.
Yeah. I mean, that to me is like, if you're the Chargers and there's an opportunity there to take Malik Neighbors or Marvin Harrison, I don't know how you could pass that up for your quarterback, right? Like I know, Keenan Allen is gone, Mike Williams is gone. Like you need receivers, so it would be very difficult for me to pass up, especially if you agree with the general consensus, and that is that those 3 guys in particular, Adunze, Harrison, and Neighbors, have a chance to be pretty special. I got to have a tough time passing that up if I'm the Chargers. And look, I get it. Jim Harbaugh in his khaki pants, he really loves some offensive linemen, and who doesn't love offensive linemen? But still, like if I'm looking at that offense and I'm looking at trying to get Justin Herbert to the next level, because I mean, look, everybody believes Justin Herbert's a really good quarterback. I think Justin Herbert's a really good quarterback, but he hasn't done anything yet. Like he hasn't done anything in the league. So trying to get him some weapons out there that you could really build around, that'd be hard for me to pass up.
And it's just the more you talk through them, I think this is going to be one of those cases of like it was over the top, all this offensive line talk. It's like, okay, this press conference, make sure you spend most of it talking about how much you love offensive line play. Like that's what they're going to do, right? And in fact, I'll call that shot right now. They're going to take a receiver. In fact, I mean, I saw some of these NFL insiders, kind of had a back and forth about, I think it was Breer and maybe a couple other guys about what they think is going to happen here. And it's like all this, the Chargers are taking a tackle, and it's like, I really think they're just blabbing about that, and they're going to do the obvious correct thing and take it. Because remember, Quentin Johnston was very underwhelming as a rookie. I mean, they badly need that. And if you have a chance to get someone who could be great at the top of this draft, how are you not doing that? You can get I mean, like, I know there's depth at receiver too, but you can get more offensive line help later in the draft. So that's my shot. Called shot. They are taking a receiver, it's been that way all along.
Tyler on the text line says there should be no scenario in which J.C. Latham goes in the top 10. If the Titans get Latham, it better be in a trade back, or this fan base will be livid. That's from Tyler. You think the fan base will be livid if the Titans go Latham at number 7?
I think that's outside of like a scenario that we haven't discussed. I think that's the most angering scenario is Latham at 7. And I get it because it does seem like a little bit of a reach. I think he could be a really good pick, but he's probably a right tackle. And if you do that, then you're probably talking about Nicholas Petit-Frere. I mean, I'm just guessing here, but you're probably talking about Nicholas Petit-Frere at left tackle. And again, maybe not. Maybe they move him to the other side. There are definitely people who think he could do that, but at Alabama, he was right side all the way.
Yep. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. It is finally NFL Draft Day. The first round coming up tonight. We'll take your thoughts on the draft. What will the Titans do? What should the Titans do? What do you hope to see tonight in the NFL Draft? 615-737-1025, our phone number. More on that coming up next. Robbie and Rex Road, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Welcome back in, Robbie and Rex Road, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rex Road, Nick Keys are here with you on this Thursday morning. It is NFL Draft Day. Speaking of the draft, don't miss Nashville's best 2024 NFL Draft coverage on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stop by tonight at Twin Peaks in Madison at 6 o'clock for live coverage of the draft. You can get the best draft coverage as we break down each pick at the home of the 29-degree beer. Jared Stillman, Derek Mason, Chris Sanders, Trevor Maddich on the coverage tonight. So it's going to be awesome. Looking forward to that. Coverage presented by Parma Tractor and Equipment, ESPN Bet, and Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning. Rex Road, I'm on another cup of coffee today. A lot of coffee coursing through these veins the last couple of days. It normally doesn't happen with me.
And you texted us that you had a cup last night, too, while you were writing a Canucks piece.
Yep, sure did.
Wow.
I don't know what's gotten into me.
Well, look, as much as I love pop, and I do love some pop, coffee's a lot better for you.
I hear that.
So I think that this is a good, especially, I mean, you're drinking it black, so, you know, like my kids are, you know, we go to a place for coffee. We have a place in Michigan, Bigby, that we love, you know, and it's like, okay, I'll have a caramel marvel. Oh, so it's a humongous milkshake loaded with sugar and caramel and whipped cream with like a tiny little bit of coffee in it. Okay, great. So you quote unquote like coffee. No, you like desserts with a tinge of coffee.
Correct.
You are drinking actual coffee. That's good for you, man. Yeah. I'm proud of you.
Turning over a new leaf today.
Keep it up.
We'll see how it goes.
Well done, Robbie.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Just don't, you know, just as long as your interests don't conflict with mine, and one day there's one pod left and you try to take
we'll
it from
me, we'll have to fist fight each other. Yeah, good.
Well, you know, I don't want to die.
I don't think you would die. Trey from Antioch on the text line says Latham is a natural left tackle. He played there in high school, but when he arrived at Bama, Evan Neal was already at left tackle, so he was forced to go the right side, where he proved he was still a dominant force. Chip from Mount Juliet asking the question: is Latham another Chance Warmack? Joe, I don't have a problem with Latham, like the player. My big issue in this, and I said this last week, to me, if you're the Titans, I want somebody that you know beyond a shadow of a doubt can play left tackle in the NFL. Now, look, maybe they know that about Latham. Like maybe Bill Callahan has looked at this and says, yeah, I have no doubt in my mind that Latham can play left tackle. And Latham, from a strength standpoint, from an athleticism standpoint, is everything we want, and that's the way we're going. And if that's the decision they come up with, then okay, more power to them. I don't want somebody that you hope can make a transition from right tackle to left tackle at the NFL level. I want somebody that you, if you're going to go left tackle, know that they can play left tackle in the NFL. That's my only reservation on Latham. It's not because I think he's a bad player.
Right. And look, I mean, when we talk about offensive tackles, I mean, you could probably, if we're going to go back to high school, I mean, for the most part, everybody played left tackle at some point, right? Including some college centers. Yeah,
running back. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, that doesn't mean it. I mean, I hear you. The thing about Alabama is, and Georgia and some of these other places is like at anywhere but like one or two places, you know, a guy is probably at left tackle or whatever position. It's just that, you know, sometimes those rosters are so loaded, you know, that you settle into the right side. So yeah, I'm not saying he can't, but I am with you. I kind of like that. I like that film to show it. And obviously he was on the other side. And look, I do, there's a lot of different analysis out there on all of these people. And I really trust Dane Brugler. Nobody's 100%, but I trust the work he does. And when he comes back with, you know, the move inside the guard, I'm immediately like, shudder a little bit, you know. Again, it's not what I mean, really, that's not a bad thing. I mean, what it means is you have versatility and also there's a certain type of athleticism at guard, you know, some things you do differently than at tackle. So, like, if it's because you can do it, not because it's not going to work out at tackle for you, that's one thing. You know what I mean? It's like, like if it's, you could move to guard because you could do that too, or it's like, yeah, not really going to work out at tackle for you. I don't think that's it with Latham. I think he's good enough to be probably a plug and play right tackle in the NFL. But again, I just think the Titans need to get a left tackle, and probably, depending on the rest of the draft for next year, give Nicholas Petit-Frere the full shot at right tackle.
The scenario that I am rooting for tonight for the Titans is the 4-quarterback scenario that we've talked about, with somebody trading up either with Arizona or with the Chargers or wherever and moving ahead of the Titans. 4 quarterbacks go before the Titans. Marvin Harrison goes at some point. And I'm hoping, Joe, somehow, some way, the Titans are sitting there at number 7 and Joe Alt is on the board, and so is Malik Neighbors. Because I would be really fascinated to see what they do. Like, I mean, obviously, if they go Alt in that scenario, they're telling you that they just believe not only is he a great football player, but the need factors in too. Like they love him some Joe Alt. But I would love to see that scenario of Neighbors still being there and them having the choice between Neighbors and Alt and seeing which way they would go with it. The more I look at it, the more I don't know that that's a likely scenario, because, I understand we were talking with PK yesterday about Neighbors and some off-the-field stuff and conversation around him. I still think at the end of the day, the talent probably wins out and Neighbors is off the board before number 7. But, man, I'd love to see that scenario for the Titans to have the opportunity to choose between those two guys.
That would be fascinating. I'd love to see it too. And I tell you what, I've thought about that scenario, and I think it's absolutely could happen. And man, I've gone back and forth. I think I'd lean Neighbors if that's the case. But what about, and I know like a lot of people, like Zach Football, he's dunking on Diana Rossini's thing about the Titans, loving the visit. But I think that's a notable nugget. I mean, they're like, yeah, sure. Like, everybody likes Caleb Williams. Well, great. Well, the Bears are getting Caleb Williams. I'm not like totally sold. I have to take seriously some of this conversation about Neighbors over Harrison, right? I mean, I can't completely dismiss it. Okay. So let's do the 4-quarterback scenario, and then let's do, Chargers take Latham. Look, there's talk, and again, whenever I hear like there's talk that this team loves this guy, I think back to there's talk that the Colts love Will Levis. Like if there's talk that a team loves this, and I'm like, are they generating this and they're going to take somebody else? But there is talk about the Giants and Roma Dunze.
There is.
So I'm just saying, man, I'm not putting it at like 0.1% that Marvin Harrison Jr. is there for the Titans at 7. I think it's higher than that. I don't think it's high. But again, if you believe tackle, certainly we all believe that that 4 quarterbacks could happen. Certainly we believe that the Chargers could take a tackle.
Yep.
And if the Giants are sticking at 6 and they're sticking with Daniel Jones, I mean, could they not take a Dunze or Neighbors, and all of a sudden the Titans have 2 of those guys?
Sure.
To choose from?
How about Alton
including
Harrison?
Marvin Harrison Jr.?
Yeah. How about Alton Harrison as a choice?
Well, that's true. I mean, I guess if the Chargers were to take Latham, yeah. And again, I'm not a film studier, and I hope I never will be. It sounds awful, but I watch a lot of college football. And my God, man, if you have a chance to take Marvin Harrison Jr., I don't care if he never runs a 40 the rest of his life. I think you run to the podium. That's just me.
I think he's going to be really good. Liam on the text line says, I don't especially care what happens tonight so long as 1 year from today we're not still talking about the Titans fixing the offensive line. Please, for the love of God, get this right, Titans. This is from Liam on the text line. Wes in Clarksville says, I have a feeling the Titans are going to pick some off-the-wall player that we have not been discussing. Joe, we've been discussing this for so long that I'm not even sure who that would be, but that would certainly probably cause a meltdown among Titans Twitter.
Well, if Mike Mayock were in charge, I mean, who would that be? Like, it'd be somebody like Tyler Guyton or something, right?
The
like
Titans in the first round have selected Jalen Wright. All right.
So there was a mock draft that had that, by the way. There really was. Like someone who writes about the NFL actually had that.
Had Jalen Wright going in the first round?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Actually, he didn't have the Titans taking him. But he did have him going in the first round. He had the Titans taking the Texas running back.
Oh, okay.
Like, wow, running back fever dream mock draft, awesome. You know,
Yeah, that probably
every
caused
kind of
fan
mock
base to go a little
draft.
nuts.
Yeah,
I don't know if I could blame them there.
like what's a realistic, totally off the wall pick? It would be like some reach for like,
J.J. McCarthy.
oh God, now I'm not trying to go that crazy. Like a Guyton or something, or
Yeah,
like
yeah.
well,
Mims. What about
again,
Mims? It's 7.
yeah. Yeah, that's yeah. I still I will tell you that if the Titans somehow tonight come away with Amarius Mims, and especially if it's like a trade back and they
Yeah.
get more picks, I like it. But that's just me. What about I find it very fascinating that they had like Terry and Arnold in for a visit. They had all these corners in.
Yeah.
What if they take a corner in the first round?
I don't
Arnold
think people are
at
going to like
7.
that. Yeah.
That would be the meltdown would be. I think I might actually, because I'm going to be, Titans headquarters tonight, but I think I might actually have to just like say, everybody be quiet. I want to listen to Jared right now on the 1025 The Game app or the GameNashville.com app,
That
right?
is no, it's the Game Nashville. No, it is the 1025 The Game app and the GameNashville.com.
God.
You got
Okay.
it.
I got it.
There you go. 615-737-1025, our phone number. More of your thoughts on the NFL draft to get to. We got a lot of your thoughts on the text line. We'll do that next. We'll open up our phone line as well. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. The best and worst things in sports coming up at 645. All that ahead. Robbie and Rex Road, 1025, 1063, The Game. Hey, Robbie Stanley here. This NBA playoffs, FanDuel is giving all customers 2 chances to bring home a big win with a no-sweat same-game parlay every weekend of the playoffs. Just place a same-game parlay on any playoff matchup, and you'll get bonus bets back if you don't win. Bet on everything from rebounds to assists, three-pointers made, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/Rob and shoot your shot on America's #1 sportsbook. My beloved Miami Heat taking down the Boston Celtics yesterday. They even that series at 1. They're back at home on Saturday. I'll tell you one that I'm keeping an eye on, though. The Lakers have been just heartbroken by the Nuggets in the last game. I think they're done. I think the Nuggets are going to finish this thing off in 4. I think they're going to win both games on the road coming up. First tonight and then on Saturday this weekend. But that's just me. You can take it any way you want to take it. Just make sure you visit FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Must be 21 or older and present in Tennessee. First online real money wager only. $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued is not withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Got a gambling problem? Call the Tennessee Red Line at 1-800-889-9789. Welcome back in, Robbie and Rex Road, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. The NFL Draft is tonight. The first round coming up. Titans scheduled to pick at number 7. We're taking your thoughts on that. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. 615-737-1025. By the way, a lot of people pointing this out on the text line as well. So I guess the Titans put out like a video of Peter Skoronski doing some drills. Looks like he's beefed up a little bit. I love how we've gotten into, let's look at each individual member of the Titans and see how much either bigger or smaller they've gotten this offseason, whether it's Traylon Burks or now Peter Skoronski. Skoronski looks like he's beefed up, Joe. He's ready to maul people up there in the middle of guard. I like it.
All right, good to know. How about his cheeks? Were his cheeks, has Jared,
I don't know.
Are they sufficiently,
I didn't hear this from Jared, so this is other sources coming in, just Titans Twitter.
Okay. Oh, Skoronski really did he need to beef up much? I mean, obviously, he gained strength every offseason, right?
Sure.
But he wasn't small. He looked like an NFL guard to me last year.
He did. Wes in Clarksville says, as bad as the O-line is, if I was the GM, I'd seriously draft an offensive line player with every single pick or mix it up between the O-line and D-line. Those are the two spots that are going to determine how good we are this year. This is from Wes in Clarksville on the text line. I would not go every other pick or every pick alternating between those two, but I do agree that like when you look at this year's Titans team, and we were talking about everything they've done this offseason, Joe, and there's a lot that they've done. But the left tackle part of this, I still believe the right tackle part of it's really important. We'll see if they address that at some point. And certainly on the other side of the ball, whether it's edge rusher or next to Jeffrey Simmons on the defensive line, like there's a lot of question marks at those two position groups. And if they can adequately solve them, then I do think the Titans have a chance to be maybe a little bit better than people think this year. If they don't adequately solve them, then that's going to be a huge problem for this team heading into next season.
Yeah. I mean, look, Wes, it's really about just making the right choices when you make those choices, not just overloading yourself with a bunch more offensive linemen. I mean, the Titans they signed a good center. I think they're okay at right guard with Brunskill coming back. And I think they're okay at left guard and could be good and could be better than good with Skoronski in his second year. So yeah, it's, and then there's a bunch of possibilities who could play tackle. I'm with you. If they can address both, great. But man, they have other needs. And look, I do believe I really do believe in if you aren't taking the best football players as you rate them, and maybe you're bad at rating them, but you got to trust your analysis, your evaluation. If you aren't drafting the best football players year after year, regardless of the position you're in, then over the long haul, you're gonna suffer for that. So, you've got, if the Titans have a surprise pick here or there positionally, to me, that's okay as long as they're true to their board.
What do you think the chances are? Because everybody talks about the trade back scenario, right? But it takes somebody to be there and to partner with you to be able to trade back. I think most people would agree, like, if you can get more picks and more kicks at the can, that's certainly a tempting way to go tonight if you're the Titans. So what, as you view the teams behind them, as you view the way you think the board is going to shake out in front of them, what do you think the chances are that, number one, an opportunity to trade back for the Titans is there tonight, and number two, they take that opportunity and trade back, whether it's to 11, whether it's later than that to 15, 16, 17, maybe it's the Buffalo Bills scenario where it's 28, like whatever the scenario is, how realistic of a trade back scenario do you think there is for the Titans as we sit here the day of the NFL draft?
Well, I'm hoping they just follow my blueprint and, just completely dazzle the entire league by trading down to 28 and then back up to 16 and still get Olu Fashanu. But I think there's definitely opportunity. Look, J.J. McCarthy, maybe he doesn't go in the top 4, but maybe, maybe he's there and someone thinks they need to move up. Obviously, it's not, it's not great that Atlanta's the team right behind the Titans, because if Atlanta didn't get Cousins, or if it was a quarterback needy team, that's where it's like another team says we have to jump right in front of that team. if you're trading up as a team, you also only want to go as far as you have to go, right? You only want to go as far
Right.
as you have to go and give up as little as possible to move up. So if the Titans were directly in front of a quarterback needy team, they'd be in an obvious spot for someone to say, let's get 7. And now the Falcons can't get McCarthy. We're getting McCarthy. But they could still want to get in there. I think a team, again, the trade I made in all seriousness, the Bills, that's a huge jump, but looking at 7, looking at who's available, because I think if you're looking at Atlanta, certainly they could go defense, but they could also go receiver. I mean, if one of those receivers in a Dunze goes down the board a little bit, and it's like, oh, the Falcons might just hook Cousins up with Roma Dunze. Another team could jump in and say, hey, we got to draft. We have a chance to draft a Dunze over the Falcons. Titans, let's go. So yeah, I think there's definitely a possibility. There's also no certainty. The board could shake out a million different ways.
How many quarterbacks are going in the first round tonight? Into the Penix and Bo Nix conversation. I mean, there's some people that believe both those guys are going in the first round, and you could have as many as 6 quarterbacks in the first round tonight. Do you buy that, or do you think that people maybe are overselling the opportunity of 6 quarterbacks to go in round 1?
Well, I certainly buy the possibility. It's what happens, right? I mean, there's the quarterback needy teams, and I think that's how so many of them get in trouble. And look, sometimes it works out for you, but I think this is how teams get in trouble. It's like, oh, we need a quarterback, so let's take the 5th or 6th best one in the first round when you could get, a really good player otherwise. And I think there's different scenarios there. Like, I think it's some of the dumbest stuff I've heard with this Patriots talk about, well, let's get some infrastructure first and then get the quarterback. You don't know. Like, you think you're going to every year have an opportunity where you are in this draft with the quality of quarterback at the top of this draft?
Yep.
Well, that's idiotic. They're taking a quarterback, and they have to take a quarterback. I mean, I just think that's just ridiculous. But when you go deeper and it's like, well, we need a quarterback. Maybe Bo Nix will be good. No, that's where you can get a Bo Nix level prospect next year. Okay. Sometimes you just use that first round pick to take a premium player at another position, and you just have to suck it up and deal with your quarterback later. I mean, there'd be the short term excitement about Bo Nix, but so I'm looking at Brugler. My gosh, the poor guy has another mock draft today.
Wow, that's impressive. Day of the draft.
I know and I know he's ready with his. One of my favorite things about this whole process is Brugler's 2025 look ahead immediately.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, man, he hits on a lot of guys with that, but he's got 5 going in the QBs in the first round. I mean, 4 are going to go high, 3 are going to go right away. I think 4 may go right away, but if not, the 4th, McCarthy's going to go not too far into the draft. And then, I mean, I think Penix is, the Penix to me is a fascinating prospect, and I think he should go somewhere in the first round. But that team has to feel okay about the medical. But I think he's a first round thrower.
Does Brock Bowers go in the top 10 tonight? I say he does not. What do you say?
I'd guess just outside it. But I'm not going to be shocked at all if he does, because, again, that's just where
I think the Jets would make a lot of sense at 10, but I say they go another route. So I'll go just outside it as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it wouldn't be the most shocking thing in the world. Like, he's exactly the kind of prospect that teams fall in love with, and maybe overdraft a little bit.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. Coming up next, it's time for the best and worst things in sports. Some people have already submitted their best and worst things. We appreciate that. We'll take yours on our phone and text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. This is Robbie and Rex Road, 102.5-106.3 The Game.
The best and worst of the sports week. Now on Robbie and Rex Road.
On ESPN.
102.5 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
This is the worst.
You look like you're feeling sorry for yourself. Believe in miracles? Yes! Unbelievable.
He's one of one. He is him.
This is a Coke bottle, it's not a crystal ball.
When I woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous.
Okay, let's go.
It is time for the best and worst things in sports. We'll take your best things, your worst things on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Joe Rexroad, kick us off with your best and worst things in the world of sports.
Okay, well, the best. There's so many best possibilities, so I'm going to rank them.
Okay. So you're just going to take all
I've
of
got
this. All right.
What? I got three best. Tied for first, the NBA playoffs and Stanley Cup playoffs. It's great stuff every night. It's an amazing time of year when you just have so many games, first rounds of both. And then third place is the NFL draft. And that's also a best. Love the draft. It's going to be fun this weekend. It's not as good as actual sports, but it's still exciting, and obviously people get very into it, and I'm fascinated to see how it's going to turn out tonight in particular. So those are all my best. Yeah, sorry, I took all the best. My worst is the transfer portal. And this is just as basically a longtime consumer of college sports. I got into a little argument with Big Joe the other day about money and players, and I'm like, yeah, no, they it's good that they should get money. I'd rather players get money than the gold-plated LSU locker rooms. Everybody has their own little iPad or whatever the hell. I mean, that's good, but the portal itself, I'm seeing Tyler Barron apparently is going into it for like the fourth time in the last couple months. The unchecked movement, in pro sports, there are contracts, and even with college coaches, yes, they can move. That is true. However, they also have contracts and buyouts, and people don't move year after year after year after year in coaching either, because they have certain, kind of restrictions. Salary cap, no, but the absolute constant movement is bad for the sports. It's bad for fans. And look, it's going to be bad for a lot of kids for sure too. There is absolutely value in sticking things out and earning things over time that you think you should get immediately for young people. So that's my worst.
Nick Keyser, your best and worst things in the world of sports.
I'll start things off with the NHL postseason. And let me tell you, when your family group chat is popping off at 11:30 at night, you've made it when you're being asked about what is going on. And look, I love the excitement, I really do, but sometimes I want them to tone it back just a little bit. But I am glad that everybody is really in tune with this playoff series. It's been a fun one so far. My grandmother called me twice before I go to sleep after game 2, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I cannot take your call. But I did tell her, I said, I'll talk to you.
Your grandma's call?
No, I called her the next day, Joe. Don't worry about it. Her and
that's nice.
Her and I are really tight, but that's good.
Good.
NHL playoffs, awesome. The worst, how about the 2021 NFL quarterback draft class? Man, it's a doozy now. You got Mac Jones, traded. Justin Fields, traded. Zach Wilson, traded. Trey Lance, gone. And now the only one that's not been traded is Trevor Lawrence. So, yeah, you never know how it's going to work out. So best of luck tonight to all the other teams that won all these great quarterbacks.
Yeah, that was 3 years ago.
Yeah.
3 years ago. And Zach Wilson getting traded earlier this week almost completes the saga. Trevor Lawrence is the one guy that's still on his own team.
Before you go, Robbie, I have another best that I'd like to add. The Jets having a "thank you, Zach Wilson" tweet. Like, what?
Zach, we appreciate your contribution so much to this organization.
Oh, my goodness.
Have a great day, guys. Enjoy the sunshine.
My best in sports, obviously, playoff hockey. I can't get enough of it. It's been awesome. Not just the Pred series, but really all of them so far I've enjoyed watching, with the possible exception of the Rangers Capitals, which I feel like is already over, and the Hurricanes, the Islanders. I have no interest in those two series. Other than that, really I'm a big fan of all the other ones. My honorable mention, Atlanta Braves, 17-6 to begin the season, a run differential of plus 44 already. So you have the Atlanta Braves off to a hot start. Joe, I guess the best thing in sports for you could also be the Chicago White Sox, who are now 3-21 to begin the season, which is hard to do.
Oh, God, I love it so much.
3-21 with a minus 82 run differential. Minus 82 already, a run differential for the Chicago White Sox.
Where's Ryan from Chicago when you need him? I need to troll him soon.
My worst thing in sports is Mark Stone and the LTIR situation for the Vegas Golden Knights. Now, look, I do not blame the Vegas Golden Knights. This is a part of the rules that both the NHL and the NHLPA have got to find a way to fix. And look, this is a collectively bargained agreement, so it's not going to change here for another couple years. And I don't necessarily blame Vegas for taking full advantage of it. But you cannot tell me that Mark Stone was not healthy enough to play in Game 82 of the regular season and then was healthy enough not only to be back in Game 1 of the playoffs, but to be back playing in all situations. And I think he was like the second highest forward in terms of ice time on the team. So, again, like I'm not one of those people that believes Mark Stone wasn't actually hurt and didn't actually have a lacerated spleen. I'm sure that he did. But I'm also sure that if push came to shove, he probably could have come back and played a week ago if he's playing now at this high of a level.
That's a heck of a made-up injury, if not, I guess if you're going to make up an injury, I mean, I guess go big, right?
Yeah.
Like inverted liver or something. Like, oh, my God.
What happened?
Heart is outside the body. Oh, my God. Well, and now he's okay.
I got a text that says the worst thing in sports this week is for sure 9 p.m. puck drops. Best thing is not playing particularly well in Game 2 and still winning by 3 goals. Herb from McEwen says the best is Nikola Jokic, player of the year. His game is crazy. The worst are just how the Lakers are not the team I was hoping that they would be. Jokic is unbelievable. Like, it's crazy to watch him do what he does, both scoring the ball, but also the vision he has at his size. It's pretty crazy.
No, he's amazing. Mike from Nashville, best in sports playoff hockey. There's a lot of that. And then the worst is Stilly's fantasy football mock drafts every day. Does he do it every day?
He does it a lot. I don't know if it's every day. We have had a couple of votes of Stilly's.
The little music.
Yeah. We have had a couple of votes for Stilly's description of Philip Forsberg's goal the other night being the worst thing in sports, which he tripled down on yesterday. He's like, yeah, it's fine.
Oh, God.
It's all right.
He tripled down on his show?
Yeah. It's fine.
Oh, God.
It's fine. I texted him. I was like, okay. His point was he's seen Philip Forsberg score better goals. I'm like, yes, we've all seen him score better goals than that one. It doesn't mean that it wasn't a pretty impressive goal. He put it bar down from 3 feet away. It's pretty good.
It was more than pretty impressive. Scream to the world that you don't know anything about hockey. I got very. I
heard that.
I got way overheated yesterday on Jared versus Joe.
What did you say?
Well, it was like 8 minutes into the thing before I said a word. And then Jared he just filibusters, which I suppose if you do a 4-hour show, you're just used to that. But it's like, okay, just get to your point. And, we got Charles Robinson on later. I mean, I'd like to see a little contest between those two.
So Jared can't get to his point, and he probably can't lift a puck off the ice. So why should he be talking about Philip Forsberg?
Oh, yeah. All righty. Way to go, Keyser. Get in there.
I'm just saying.
Damn, Keyser going after Stilly and hanging up on his grandma. My goodness.
I did not hang up on her, Joe. I still called her back.
The phone call. Yeah.
Okay. You just saw Grandma, I'm sorry.
Not today.
I'm busy.
Not
call you tomorrow.
We'll call you in the morning. No big deal.
Okay.
We'll see.
Have a good night's sleep.
That's right. Coming up next, we'll be joined by Alex Dheghy from the Tennessean. He was live in Vancouver for games 1 and 2 of the Predator series. We'll get his thoughts on what he's seen to this point, what he expects from the Predators moving forward. This is Robbie and Rex Road, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Hour number 2, Robbie and Rex Road, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rex Road, Nick Keys are here with you on this Thursday morning. Preds and Canucks even up at 1 game apiece, coming back to Nashville for Game 3 tomorrow. And to help us talk more about that, we go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in our friend Alex Doherty from the Tennessean. Alex, welcome back to town. Good morning. How are you?
I'm great. Lot of traveling yesterday, but I'm back and I'm awake right now to talk to you. So I'm glad to be here.
What a champion you are. Appreciate you taking time to be with us this morning. So Alex, it's a 1-1 series. In some ways, kind of an unconventional route to get to that point. But what do you make of what you've seen from the Predators through the first 2 games?
Well, I don't think I've ever seen a third period quite like that. Game 2's third period was a 20-minute penalty kill. I mean, maybe not fully 20 minutes, but it felt like, I mean, I was watching the game. I had to move downstairs for the, I was up in the press box for most of it at Rogers Arena, but then you have to move downstairs. And I remember like just everyone down there is just expecting the game to get tied, or at least for the Canucks to get on the board, because there was just so many chances. And I think that I was surprised that Vancouver didn't pull the goalie earlier, because I mean, why not? Like, Nashville wasn't even getting the puck over the red line, and it was just like it would have been really probably a good idea to pull the goalie and just go ahead and get even more skaters out there. But anyways, overall, I think that the fact that they came back with the series tied and still didn't play really all that great in either game as a team is probably bodes well. I mean, and then obviously the news with Thatcher Demko likely being out for the rest of the series is just like it just means that they have such an opportunity here, and they need to take advantage at home. And it starts Friday night.
Yeah, no, I can't recall that either. Like the level of domination, when it ends up 4-1 score the other way, and also like shots on goal are like 18-16. So you look at the box score and it's like, okay, man, Preds outplayed them, huh? I mean, it was just pure territorial domination. How do you explain that? Because obviously the first game, Alex, I mean, I think it was pretty evenly played. I mean, both teams had their stretches, and I guess I kind of thought I thought the other night, the Canucks know they have to win this game with the Demko news. I feel like it was just like a desperate, almost like they were the ones who were down in the series playing an elimination game. So maybe you chalk some of it up to that, but how do you think it flips, if it does flip it, and who needs to, I guess in particular, play better for the Preds Friday night?
I'm not entirely sure, because I think that it was part of it was matchups. The top line, the Predators' top line, really kind of got shut down by the Lindholm line. I mean, which is kind of surprising. They were at 5-on-5, anyways. It seemed like they had to spend so much time dealing with the Canucks forecheck. They just couldn't. They had these long shifts, and then they just had to dump the puck out and go off for a change. And so, like, there was so much defensive work. I tried to ask, if they were. It felt like at least at some point. I know this sounds kind of strange, but it felt like they were playing such defensive hockey the whole time. They were almost in like a rhythm defensively. They were almost like in a. They just were kind of like, they would go out there, play, 45 seconds of let's block every shot, and then go off for a change. And then the next group does the same thing. It was just like they had this like defensive rhythm going on and Saros was locked in, and they had like 3 guys in front of the net at all times. And it was just, it almost felt like they were kind of okay with it. Like, and, I asked Brunette about it, and he was like, well, I mean, they were trying to push to get out of the zone, but at the same time they were like, if we're blocking so many shots and we're getting in the passing lanes and stopping the dangerous stuff, it's like you got to do what's working. And then finally, at one point in the period, Phil Forsberg decides to skate it into the offensive zone, and draws a penalty. And it's like, I wonder if you had tried to do that earlier. Maybe some better stuff would have happened. But it was really crazy. And I'm not entirely sure. I think part of it is, what could change on Friday? Like, you're going to get maybe a little bit better matchup. You're going to have the home crowd on your side, and you're going to have a Canucks team that maybe is going to start double guessing things, and maybe they're going to change up some things. Maybe they'll make a lineup change and think that they need to switch it up, and that could help you. I think that it's going to have to come internally from the Preds. Like, they're going to have to find a way to generate 5-on-5 better, because it's just like, it's not a great start to the series, even though they're tied.
Alex Dheghy from the Tennessean with us here on Robbie and Rex Road. So, like you said, Friday they will have more control of the matchups, having last change at home. Do you think that we overblow that this time of year? Do you think that could end up making a big difference from the Predators? How do you view not only the home atmosphere, which we know is going to be awesome, but just the last change part of it and how that could affect the game coming up on Friday in Game 3?
Yeah, I think it's situational. I think it's like in certain moments, like let's say you get a big offensive zone start just after an icing or something, and that the line out there for the Canucks is tired, and then you want to throw the Forsberg line out there. Like, in that situation, you've got a huge advantage. Or a situation where that a particular line on the Vancouver side is not playing well, and you like the matchup with the Novak line, for example. So I think there is something to it. You can definitely overplay it. I mean, most changes in hockey games are on the fly anyways. So it's not like it's all about the changes at the face-off. So I think there's something to it, and I think Brunette is probably the kind of coach that will take advantage of it.
Yeah, and like you said earlier, I mean, maybe just even getting away from Lindholm when you can, too, right? I mean, if things like that. And I imagine, I mean, it seems like he likes Sissons against the Miller line, right? I mean,
exactly. That's what I was going to say. Yeah, exactly. The Miller line, especially with I mean, not that they've been bad, but like for Elias Pettersson clearly is not playing very well, and the Vancouver knows that, and I think Brunette could do some stuff with that, where he could put the Sissons line on Pettersson and really frustrate him even more, something like that, or maybe there's a way that he could neutralize. To be honest, I think the Lindholm line is their best line right now. I mean, like Lindholm, Joshua, Connor Garland that was the problem. Like, I mean, even though one of Joshua's goals was an empty netter, like, they've been the better scoring line. They've been really solid, really good against the O'Reilly line. I just think like that's probably the better line of the two. But you don't want to forget that JT Miller is really good, and he's gonna show that at some point.
Alex, last thing for you here. Given the Demko situation, I mean, at this point, I'd be shocked if he's back in this series. We know that DeSmith is starting in Game 3 at least. That was confirmed yesterday. Given the fact that they've already split and they're coming back home, do you believe the Predators have the inside track to winning this series, or is that an overreaction at this point?
Yeah, well, I'm just wondering if Demko had a double cup, maybe he'd be okay.
Maybe so. You uncovered some big stuff the other day.
Yeah, I'm going to try to get to the bottom of the double cup today. I mean, I don't know. I think we need to figure out exactly what's going on there. I was doing some research, and I think I've got some theories.
Okay, all right.
Boy, I mean, when that news broke about Demko, I mean, the whole building changed. You could tell that the Vancouver media were scrambling to figure out what was going on, and then it changed everything. I also wonder, I asked Brunette if he was going to think about changing the lineup at all on Monday, and he seemed to indicate that it was a possibility, and I don't think that he was lying to me. I think he was considering it. But then when the Demko news breaks and then they don't make any changes, I kind of wonder if that was part of it. Like, if he was thinking maybe even make a change, but then found out that they were going to have to go with a new goalie. So he was like, maybe a change would be an overreaction since there's a new goalie. I don't know. That's just a theory. Maybe there's not much to it, but I think it changed everything. I mean, Casey DeSmith is not close to Thatcher Demko in terms of quality. And then you saw UC Saros finally have a great playoff performance that won them the game. I mean, the game, this series is going to be won in the net at this point, I think. And right now, the Nashville has that advantage. So all they have to do is play a little bit better at 5-on-5, and they've got a great shot.
Well,
I think we all need to like pepper Saros with questions today, guys, on the double cup. Like it's going to be like someone coming out of a courtroom in a movie. He's like, you say, the double cup. I mean, I think we just absolutely need to join forces today and figure this out.
Or maybe he needs to go with the triple cup. I don't know.
Well, maybe. I don't know. I mean, congratulations to you. That is, I think, for sure, probably the best UC Saros quote we've ever gotten. That's pretty good.
Yep, and maybe ever will.
Maybe so.
Alex, really appreciate you taking time to be with us. I know it's been a long couple periods of travel for you over the last few days here. Looking forward to seeing you later today, and we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, all right. See you guys later.
Absolutely. Alex Doherty from the Tennessee and our guest here on Robbie and Rex Road. I'm throwing it out there, Joe. The question I just asked Alex, do you believe the Predators have the inside track to winning this series? We'll take your thoughts on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, our phone number. This is Robbie and Rex Road, 1025-1063, The Game. Robbie and Rex Road brought to you by Chuck McDowell and Medical House Calls, Middle Tennessee's best medical care in the comfort and safety of your own home. For more information, go to medicalhousecalls.com. Medical House Calls, where the nearest clinic is your home. We are broadcasting live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexroad, Nick Keyser here with you. Appreciate Alex Doherty of the Tennessean for being with us in the last segment. So, Joe, the Predators have evened things up 1-1. Now, on one hand, I think you could make the argument they've been outplayed. I don't even know if it's an argument. They've been outplayed through the first two games of this series. It was pretty dramatic in terms of the territorial advantage and the shot attempt efforts last time out as they took on Vancouver. They won the game 4-1. So, on the other side of things, they evened up the series. They got the split on the road. They're coming back home for home ice advantage. And the starting goaltender of the other team, which is not some Scarbini, as Stilly likes to say, it's a pretty darn good goalie, is out, is probably going to be out the rest of the series, and that's obviously a huge deal. So, Joe Rexroad, I ask you, do you believe that the Nashville Predators, with what we've seen to this point, the entire picture in totality, have the inside track to winning this series right now as things stand against Vancouver?
It's a great question. And it's a tough one to answer based on just the way the game was played. And, you know, it's like even looking at these playoffs, Robbie, like I'm looking around and I'm seeing, you know, some of these goalies for other teams kind of stepping up. They're not backup goalies like DeSmith, but, you know, even like Georgiev, you know, what he did in game 2. Compared to game 1, Samsonov has bounced back. Again, I understand the difference. What I'm saying is, you know, you can overcome in the Stanley Cup playoffs like a goaltending disadvantage if you are that good otherwise.
Yeah.
And so just the way Vancouver controlled the action the other night, like I still kind of have a hard time saying clearly the Preds are the favorite. I mean, I think it's still really close. I would have to, well, I was going to say I would have to give them the edge if they had Demko. Now, who knows how that game would have gone? Maybe it goes completely the other way, and it's clearly that the Canucks are just the superior team. But if you force me to give you a yes/no answer, I have to say yes. I have to say yes because I mean, I think what Alex said there. I mean, this series should ultimately be, determined there. And if the Preds are going to be consistently better, you would expect them to find their game. You expect them to bounce back and play a lot better in different facets at home. I actually do think last change in this series could be real handy in their building at times. And, so yes, but saying it very, with a little bit of a shudder, like I'm not totally sure about this.
Well, I'll say this. If Demko was still healthy, even if the series was 1-1, let's say the things played out exactly the same way. If Demko was healthy, I would feel terrible about the Predators' chances moving forward based on what I've seen to this point. I mean, Vancouver has been all over them. They've had the puck basically the whole time in this series. Now, the Predators, to their credit, have done a really good job of stepping in lanes and preventing shots on goal, and we talked about that even in Game 1. Vancouver had a lot of looks in Game 1. They only got 21 through. So you're talking about in Game 1, 21 shots on goal, in Game 2, 18 shots on goal for Vancouver. So the Predators have done a marvelous job of stepping in there and blocking shots, and they deserve credit for that. They're going to have to get so much better in terms of 5-on-5 opportunities that they can generate. And I'm interested to see, like, how much better can they actually get? Like, I think last change matters. I don't think it matters to that degree in terms of, like, the utter dominance that we've seen from Vancouver over the last two games at home for them when they've really controlled the play 5-on-5. So the one reason why I feel like the Predators are, I shouldn't say one reason, two reasons. Two reasons why I feel the Predators are in a pretty good spot right now. Number one, I think DeSmith is vulnerable in net. And I think if you can find a way to put some pucks on net find a way to break through and get to some of those rebounds, I think they're going to be there for you. And I think you're going to have some opportunity to score. So DeSmith, I believe, is vulnerable in net. And number two, I think it's going to be hard for the Predators in terms of territorial play to be much worse than they were last game out. Like I don't know how you could be much worse than they were territorially in game 2. So that should lead to more offensive chances the other way. But if Demko was still in this thing, Joe, I wouldn't feel very good at all right now because Vancouver, I think, has been that dominant through 2 games.
Yeah, but well, they were that dominant in game 2.
They were dominant in game 1. I mean, the Predators had like about a 7-minute stretch. The numbers do say that. They had a huge shot attempt advantage in game 1. I mean,
the zone time was pretty different game 1 to game 2. I mean, they were better, but I thought the Preds had stretches in game 1 where they looked like the Preds. They had offensive zone time, right?
They
did. They got some speed through the neutral zone.
It certainly wasn't as dramatic as game 2. There's no question about that.
I mean, the third period of game 2 was like, that's the last impression we have. And again, if it's anything like that anymore, then I mean, that looked like 2 teams at different levels of hockey playing each other. Right?
It did.
So I mean, that's like how, yeah. Like overall, have they been better? Yeah, for sure. And the third period really tilts the ice. I think game 1, you can look at that and you can say, okay, flip it to the Preds building. They get a little extra energy, whatever. Yeah. Last change. It can help in some situations. For the most part, both coaches are making lineup choices as the action goes, because that's what hockey is for the most part. So, it can be overrated, but I think in a certain situation, and we've certainly seen it, right, in the playoffs where it's like, oh, there's an icing and their third D pairing and
Correct.
fourth line are out there, and oh my goodness, they're screwed. It's also just hard for me to believe that like this is just what these 2 teams are against each other, but we'll see. I think the Preds can even that up, and if that's the case, then my answer would be a little bit more emphatic, yes, because I'm with you. I mean, look, their goalie is. You should be able to get a couple past him that you wouldn't have gotten past Demko. And then your goalie, I mean, that's a huge deal. Is Saros going to build off what he did? He was incredible in games 3 and 4 at home in the last playoff series he played in. Not that necessarily means anything with this, but he does have that experience of playing really well in his building in the postseason.
No question about it. The one thing about the last change that I'm interested to see if the Predators can work to their advantage. Like Novak, I think, has been pretty bad through 2 games. Can you find some situations at home where you can have that line out there in as advantageous of a situation as possible? Because like Novak has been largely invisible and maybe not invisible. I mean, sometimes I think he's been a detriment in the first 2 games. Can you find a way to kind of free that line up a little bit at home with the last change? I mean, everybody's going to talk about O'Reilly and Forsberg and Nyquist, and obviously you want to get those guys advantageous matchups, but you got to find a way to get that Novak line going. And I think at home, that's probably where the last change comes into it for me, is trying to find a way to free that line up.
Yeah. I think so, but also like they just have to play better. Like they have to, whatever the matchup is, like they have got to provide some puck possession and some offensive chances for this team. I mean, that's the line that, again, I thought Evangelista was good in game 1, and then that line just was quiet in game 2. And granted, Beauvillier goes to the other line, and it's really good, but you've got to get Evangelista going.
615-737-1025, our phone number. More of your thoughts on the Predators. We'll also get back into the NFL draft coming up as well. The Rex Rant at 7:45. Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports for his weekly visit from 8 to 8:30, talking all things NFL draft. All that coming up. Robbie and Rex Road, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Tune in to 94.9 The Fan today as the Nashville Sounds take on the Louisville Bats on the road. Pregame at 5:20, first pitch at 5:35. Coverage also available on the 94.9 The Fan app and at 949thefan.com. Sounds Baseball and 94.9 The Fan presented by Twin Peaks, Family Leisure, and Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning. Taking your thoughts on the Predators, 615-737-1025. Our phone number, 615-737-1025. Caleb and Gallatin. If you knew before the series started the Preds would come back home tied 1-1, their backup goalie is going to be the starter for Vancouver the rest of the way, I think most people would say this is a series the Preds should win. The playoffs can be crazy, but I would think most fans would be disappointed if we lose, even though that wasn't the expectation coming in. Do you think Preds fans' expectation have changed, Joe, given what's happened with Thatcher Demko in this series?
Well, yeah. I mean, no question. I mean, it's a significant change. I mean, you can't. To me, I mean, of course, it changes it. It's just a matter of do the Canucks have enough to make up for that, and maybe they do. And Saros has to. Saros had a lot of shots blocked in front of him, but he has to continue to play at that high level that he especially played at in the third period. When, again, the Preds are just completely caved in. I got a text here says, if Bruno's an offensive guru, it doesn't show up anywhere, including the power play. I mean, first of all, we've seen this team this year, as we've talked about, score tie a franchise record for goals,
yep,
right? And score 3.26 goals a game. It has shown up very clearly. I would say the power play, I think the numbers actually are better than what I think it is a lot of times.
Yep.
But, in this series, that's a huge key, obviously. I mean, there's been one power play goal in the series so far, which is, again, both teams had good power plays and the penalty kills weren't great during the regular season. And then we're seeing the opposite here. But as we talked about going into the series, Vancouver's power play has actually been kind of struggling for a lot of the season. It was outrageously good in the first 6 weeks.
Yep.
Way first in the league, and it really has gone down. And I think they're in their heads a little bit.
I think they are too. I mean, Pedersen
especially
is he's getting killed right now in terms of the criticism from Vancouver and the media and the fans and all that stuff. He is such a big key to me to the rest of this series. JT Miller is a really good player. I think he's probably going to be a problem to the point where I think he's going to figure some things out as this series goes on, and the Predators are going to have to really contend with him. If they can continue to, I don't know if shut down is the right word, but if they can continue to really limit Pedersen and how effective he's been, then I think that's a pretty good path to winning this series, because he's such an important cog to what they do. And look, he missed a wide open net in game 2. It's about as open of a net as you're going to find in an NHL game, and he just missed it. So, I think it's pretty clear he's in his head a little bit right now. We'll see if that improves as things go on here, or if it gets worse. Sometimes that could snowball on a player, and they just really get outside themselves, and this is kind of really the first time that he's going through this playoff experience like this. So I'm interested to see how that affects. Joe, I think this is a really good time for the Predators to have. You spent so much time and so much effort defending and blocking shots. And, Andrew Burnett talked after the game. He talked again yesterday about embracing the pain. It looked like there was a lot of pain going on out there. So I wonder, how physically demanding was that game? And look, we've seen this in the playoffs. Every now and then you show up after a game to either a practice the next day or certainly the next game, and you're like, oh, well, where's so-and-so? Did the Predators come out of game 2 completely healthy? That'd be another thing to keep an eye on.
Yeah, that's a good point. Ryan O'Reilly has definitely been ginger going back to the bench a few times. Yep. For sure. And I really did think that, double cup jokes aside, I thought maybe that could have been some lower body, not groin area injury for Saros on that collision. That was a hard collision. So they're lucky that, he came out of that okay, because he was slow. But apparently, again, if the double cup matters, you got to give someone a few moments there, right?
Yes.
In that situation. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see today at practice? Is anybody? We expect Forsberg to not be out there because he hasn't been,
Right.
but anybody else really? I tell you what, Roman Josi, the hit he took,
Man,
that was Myers, right?
that was Zadorov.
No, Myers was out.
Yeah,
That was I'm sorry, that was
Zadorov.
Zadorov. I get those monsters mixed up. Yeah, that hit he took, like you don't take hits like that in the regular season. Roman
No,
Josi
it was
doesn't
a
take hits like that
massive
in the
hit.
regular season. I mean, there's hits during the regular season. There's big hits and stuff like that. Like that's one of those, like, only in the playoffs are you going to see someone just absolutely crushed like that. I mean, like in the regular season, if that happened to Josi, first of all, those gloves are dropping immediately.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, and not saying it was a dirty hit, but I'm just saying there's an example of like the punishment, not just taking block shots that these guys have taken. And that's why this tournament, I think people don't understand like the war of attrition it truly is to go series after series in this thing and try to keep yourself in one piece.
I can confirm that Josi looked like he was all right yesterday. He did address the media getting off the plane, so it looked like he's fine. But, I mean, there's a massive hit that he took. And another thing to keep an eye on, I mean, Tyler Myers had the flu in Game 2, so he didn't play. I mean, I would guess, unless he's just got a really severe case of the flu, that he's probably going to be out there in Game 3, and you're talking about another mammoth defenseman and physical presence that you're going to have to contend with if you're the Predators. And that is the other thing. Like, I do think Vancouver has gotten the best of the physical battle in the first two games. Does that shift at all when you're back home, when the crowd's on your side, the place is buzzing, the energy level is high? Like, does that influence the physicality in the game a little bit in favor of the Predators being back on home ice?
I mean, I think that's where you see it. You know, I think you see that energy in some of the, because again, when you make a play and you get a reaction like that, there's just a natural human like response to want to do it again, right? Yeah. Dave says, explain last change. So basically, Dave, when there's a stoppage, the home team, you know, if there's a stoppage, the home team gets the second chance to put people out there. So whoever's out there for the visiting team, the home coach can see that and say, okay, and the ref will hold it up until they put out their people and say, okay, well, we're putting these guys against them. And it just reversed. So that's what Vancouver had, and that's what the Preds have. Again, as we've talked about, most of hockey is not played after stoppages. Right. Most of it is changes on the fly while the game is going on. But in some situations, that can be a big advantage for the home team.
Harold Meadow Henry on the text line. Predators fans should not get too excited just yet. Remember when Corey Crawford got cold and Scott Darling basically shut us down? We have seen, Joe, the curse of the backup goalie. We've seen it happen.
Absolutely. No, I mean, it happens. Now, you know, I know Corey Crawford Corey Crawford had some moments. I never, you know, I think the gap between Demko and DeSmith is pretty big.
It's pretty large.
Like some teams have like two goalies, you know, and they bounce back and forth. And we've seen the Penguins and Caps in recent years, of Vegas last year. Like this is a very good, like one of the best goalies in the league this year, and then like an okay backup.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's a little bit different.
It's a little bit different, and like you take your chances with this every time if you're the Predators. Really, to me, like it's less about DeSmith, because I feel pretty confident. Like if the Predators find a way to get to him more, they're gonna score. Like I feel pretty confident about their ability to beat him, but can they get there? I mean, they're coming off a game where you barely spend any time in the offensive zone. So can you get there? Like, can you get there and make them really doubt themselves? Like you go out and you capitalize on the energy the crowd I think is going to bring, and you come out in the first 10 minutes and you're playing like gangbusters. You get to Casey DeSmith a couple times. That creates immediate doubt for Vancouver. I mean, I think there's naturally, like if you're a player in the Vancouver locker room right now, and I heard Bruce Boudreau on the NHL Network compare it this way, and I don't know that I necessarily buy this comparison, but I understand what he's saying. He compared basically the Canucks losing Demko to what it would be like if Edmonton lost McDavid. And I don't necessarily buy that comparison, but Boudreau did coach the Canucks, and he knows how good Demko is. So I think naturally, like if you're a Vancouver player, there's got to be a little bit of, oh God, we've lost Demko. Like that's just such a tough blow, and you're trying to do what you can, and obviously advance as far as you can here. But if you can create a little doubt and get to DeSmith if you're the Predators, I think that could really serve you well from a psychological standpoint in this series.
Well, that's why I really the other night it was like I feel like I'm watching a home team down 3-1 in a series.
Yeah.
Like it felt like they were like one because they know that what the losses is, and so you need to not lose home ice, but also just like maybe just to have that confidence that you can still do it. Casey DeSmith did win some big games down the stretch.
He did.
He went into Edmonton, and they won that game to basically win the division. So it's not like he hasn't played well. But yeah, there's a difference. I don't know if I buy the McDavid thing, but I hear what he's saying there, like just in terms of if someone is so, because there still are goalies for teams that are. I mean, look, when the Preds, it wasn't that long ago, like the Preds' confidence started with Pekka Rinne when he was playing great in goal, right?
Yeah. Coming up next, it's time for the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode. You can check it out every morning here on the program. We'll do that next. Charles Robinson coming up at 8 o'clock. All that ahead. Robbie and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game.
Sometimes he wakes up on the wrong side of the bed. And sometimes he's just, well, Joe.
Awkward moment, let's do it.
This is the Rex Rant, now on Robbie and Rex Road.
What's up? This is Scott Stapp from Creed, and you're listening to Robbie and Rocks Road on 102.5 The Game. Okay, did I say Rocks Road right?
Rex Road.
Rex Road. Okay, let me do that again.
No worries.
What's up? This is Scott Stapp from Creed, and you're listening to Robbie and Rex Road on 102.5 The Game.
Man, that always puts me in a good mood. I think I could listen to that every day. Every single day, I could do it. It's time for the Rex Rant with Joe Rex Road. Joseph, the floor is yours.
I don't think that's ever going to stop being funny.
It's not. It will never stop being funny.
Truly fantastic. Apparently there's a cruise, by the way. Who the heck just sent me this? Oh, I think it was Gentry. There's a cruise that you can go on, okay? Since we're going to bring up Creed. And it's like you play drinking games with all these bands from like the 90s. I got to find this, man. Yeah, I'm not kidding. Like you play like beer pong with Creed and like Tonic or like some of these bands. I have to find. Oh my gosh, this is terrible. Oh, here we go. Okay, yeah. Oh, okay, here we go. It's the Creed Summer of '99 cruise. Okay,
yes.
Summer of '99 cruise.com. And here are some of the bands: Three Doors Down, Tonic, Vertical Horizon, Tantric Fuel, Dishwalla, Buck Cherry, East Lansing's own Verve Pipe. Saw those guys back before they got famous. So there you go. And you can go on there and apparently just like hang out with. And that's exactly what Creed should be doing, right? Like they should be doing like weird cruises and playing like the Wilson County Fair.
I tell you what, though, a Creed and Three Doors Down, I could get behind that. I feel like I could have a pretty good time on that cruise.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I don't hate a little Dishwalla every once in a while, So, but actually, that's a good intro because we're going to talk about butchering the English language today. So that worked out pretty well.
Okay.
So first of all, I need to apologize because I think sometimes I'm a little mean to people. I think especially yesterday, I may have complained a bit too much on Jared versus Joe. But although I think I had a valid complaint, but I can be a little mean. And Big Joe called me out yesterday, and I want to apologize. If I've said, he said, I don't remember saying it, but I don't doubt that it's true. If I said past history, so I was talking about the Titans and draft picks, because Kaharski's always talking about, they've never drafted a good receiver, so why would they now? It's like, that doesn't make any sense, But if I use the term past history, that is a terrible redundancy, and I apologize. Okay?
Okay.
Past history. So thank you, Big Joe, for calling me out. You know what? I appreciate it. I think that we should hold each other accountable, and I will work my damnedest to never say past history again.
I smoke weed constantly.
That is a fantastic drop. That's a fantastic drop. So, from a guy who I don't think has ever smoked weed. So
he says no. He says he has.
Yeah, or so he claims. So I want to talk about let's talk about the Titans draft tonight, because you know what the Titans need to do? They need to do a lot of things, but they really need to shore up their offensive line. Would we all agree that the Titans need to shore up their offensive line? I would hope so, because it needs some shoring up. This one can go no longer. I am not going to let this pass anymore. And by the way, there is a major offender at this station. And I'm not going to call that person out individually because I think I do that too much. I mean, Chase is at some point going to fire me for being mean to my, coworkers. But someone, and you know who you are, says, "Sure up," which is not a thing. It's not a verb. It's shore up. Shore, it is actually a verb, and it's derived from the noun shore, which means prop, a beam or a timber propped against a structure to provide support. Right. The verb shore dates from I'm reading dictionary.com. Dates from the year 1340 and first used on record in 1581. You can shore things up, strengthen them, support them, right? You don't shore things up. That's freaking stupid, and I'm sick of hearing it. And if you're doing that, I want you to think about it, and I want you to stop doing it.
Wow.
That's my English lesson for the day.
I like that. So you're not going to call out who this was? That's fine. We can all take our guesses.
This person knows who they are. Yeah, it's just I feel like I need to, sometimes when I rip on Kaharski a lot. We have fun with Keezer. I yelled at Caroline over the Marvin Harrison Jr. take. I just feel like I've been a little bit grouchy lately.
I mean, people I saw both on the Twitterverse yesterday and even some this morning on our own text line. You maybe went a little overboard yesterday with Stilly on Jared versus Joe. You were pretty passionate out there. I didn't think you were overboard. I enjoyed every last second of it. But a lot of passion from you yesterday.
Well, look, it was truly excessive. It was Jared became the William Faulkner of sports radio, which is just stream of consciousness, like one word after blah, 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 and then I would do this, and then I would do that, and then I would do this, and then I would do that. Like, okay, great. Answer her question. He just forgets the questions. Answer her question, and then the other person talks. So, yes, I could have handled it better, but I think that I don't think I was encountering the norm there. I think he was really on one yesterday, and he lost.
Now we have a nice reminder, speaking of English language problems that we've had on this program before. Remember the nip it in the butt rather than the nip it in the bud, what it actually is?
Oh, my goodness.
That's being revisited on the text line right now. That was good
nip
stuff.
Nip it in the butt. Yes, all-timer from Michelle. Yes.
Russell and Franklin, can we get Joe to do an entire segment on topic in his PK voice? I think that
didn't I do that one time?
I think you tried, and I think it
was bad.
It may cause an aneurysm at some point. We don't want you to have that.
The problem is I kind of flipped from Jersey to New York to Boston, and so in short bursts it can be effective and funny. But if I try to talk like this for 12 straight minutes, you know what I'm saying? It would be ridiculous. See, I mean, even that wasn't very good. It's weird. It's almost like, the
short
Exorcist,
bursts.
you get possessed sometimes by Beelzebub and it works, and then sometimes you can't channel it.
Christina on the text line says, "Holy Toledo, what got into Joe to turn my wake-up radio into a cranky grammar moderator?" This is from Christina on the text line. I don't know. Good question.
I know. I'm sorry, Christina. First of all, again, I was trying to call myself out too because past history is dumb. That is very dumb. And so I'm glad Big Joe called that out. But then I was trying to think yesterday, okay, I was trying to think of a snappy response on Twitter, what's a recent grammar issue I've had. But that we had a sure up issue on a show on our station a couple weeks ago, and I was just clenching my fist, and I was like, this is the time to bring it out.
I like it. Very good stuff. Coming up next,
sure up.
We'll be joined by Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports. Get into all things NFL draft. The first round of which is tonight. That's coming up next. Robbie and Rex Road, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Final hour, Robbie and Rex Road, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rex Road, Nick Keyser here with you on this Thursday morning, and we have finally made it to draft day here on the program. But to help us talk more about that, we go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in our friend Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports. Charles, good morning. Happy draft day. How are you?
I'm doing well. How you guys doing this morning?
We're great, man. Appreciate you taking time to be with us. So, Charles, the first round tonight, what is the most intriguing part of this draft to you, either with the draft itself, players that could be moved around the draft? What are you most, I guess, looking out for tonight?
I want to know what's going to happen with the Patriots at 3. I feel like we're at the point now that Caleb Williams at 1, Jaden Daniels at 2 feels fairly locked in, and I think people are still – I think the presumption is that Caleb or Drake May is going to come off the board at 3 to the Patriots, that they're going to stick and pick and that they'll end up going with Drake May. But I do know there is a caucus inside the Patriots that definitely likes J.J. McCarthy, and I'm curious to see how that plays out, particularly with Jonathan Kraft. Anytime an element of ownership becomes more involved in what your process is, which is what is happening right now, in New England, it makes it a little more unpredictable than people think. Now, the latest wave of sort of where they're going seems to be pushing this Drake May idea. But if it's McCarthy, what becomes interesting is it really would reverberate through the rest of the draft, because I think May is definitely, unquestionably the target for the Minnesota Vikings. The idea of the Vikings moving up and especially giving up a lot of assets to move up. I think that player is May that they're targeting. It doesn't mean that they don't like McCarthy at all, but it's definitely the number one priority, I think, moving up. So he would have to get past the Patriots at 3 for them to come and play at 4, and then I think it could trigger all kinds of things in that, top 8, 9, 10, I think through the 15th pick. So that to me is definitely one that is pretty interesting. And then another team that not a lot of people are talking about, the Indianapolis Colts, I don't think have gotten a ton of, chatter in the process, particularly as a potential trade team. But, I think the Colts really prize – I think they definitely want to take a player to accentuate Anthony Richardson. I think they would love it to be one of those top 3 wideouts. I think if the top 5, 6 picks, 7 picks go into a certain way that one of those or 2 of those wideouts start to slide toward the end of 10, I think Indianapolis could become more active. I think if they get stuck at 15, it depends if Bowers is there. If he's not, I bet you the first surprise we see is potentially Xavier Worthy coming off at number 15 to the Colts.
Hi, Charles. Sorry, I missed most of your answer because my computer just melted down. So, first of all, you're in L.A., so you got a show tonight. We should let you plug that real fast. And you and Fitz. By the way, our guy Fitz out there with you. Make sure he brings his fiddle, because I think that a little fiddle during the show would be effective. But real quick, how can people see this?
If you check out, so it'll be streaming. We'll have everything you need to see if you check out Yahoo Sports once the draft kicks off. But it's going to be streaming live. It's going to be myself, as you said, Jason Fitz, Matt Harmon, who handles a lot of our fantasy load at Yahoo Sports, Adam Gorney from Rivals, and then Damian Harris, who obviously was the running back for the Patriots and the Bills during the course of his NFL career. So it'll be basically it's just going to be the 5 of us. And as picks roll in, we're going to suss out what we think of the different players and things we'd heard and the process and whatnot. So it's going to be a little bit different. It won't be like a live feed of the NFL draft. It's just going to be more sort of what we had all heard into the process, what we think of the picks. If you want to watch it, dual screen experience type of thing, check out Yahoo Sports once the draft starts. So it should be pretty fun.
So you think 6 quarterbacks are going in the first round?
Yeah, I do. I think at this point it's pretty. The interesting thing about it, though, is So I'm telling you, Penix, when I did all these draft assessments and I felt like I got the stack of how teams were looking at their own boards and trying not really their own boards in terms of how they valued players with grades, but more how they felt like players would come off the board. To me, the one player in the 6 quarterbacks, and really it comes down to Bo Nix of Oregon and Michael Penix of Washington, the one player who had by far assessments that screamed to me someone really has to like him to take him in 1 was Penix. Of 11, 12 teams, they were clearly stacking him in the mid-first to the end of the mid-second to the end of the second. And some even had 3rd-round grades on him. And, I think a lot of that has to do with the medical. There are some teams that no matter what, he's been healthy for a couple of years, they're going to subboard him just from a medical perspective and say, we can't risk a first-round pick on this guy. Maybe we can't risk a second-round pick. But, of 12 teams, I think only one had like a late first round sort of in their stack. This is where we think he's likely to come off, a late first round grade or lock in on the boards where they're looking externally at the rest of the league. 13 at the Raiders, they have been locked on to him. I remember being at the Combine. We might have discussed it on the show where it was early on, and I started to hear, the Raiders love him. They're locked in on him. And I'm like, in the second? I can't believe they're going to take this guy at number 13. That's never stopped consistently through the process. And I questioned it so much at the Combine. I internally and then in the league, I kind of asked a few people, but I was like, I'm not saying this out loud. And then Daniel Jeremiah, like a week or two after, I think he released his first mock, and he had him going to the Raiders. I'm like, all right, well, I guess we can talk about this. It's not that crazy. But teams, even then, when you would ask them, were kind of like, that's wild. Like, that is just this idea of quarterbacks really getting over pursued in this draft to push him up that high. And it's not just the medical. He's short to intermediate. Short to intermediate. There's things about him that need a lot of work as a passer. And then I think teams looked at the Michigan tape in the national title game. And they said, this is NFL type of pressure. This is what he's going to deal with. And they did not like what they saw on tape against Michigan. And I think there was just this concern that is he going to be able to handle it, when he gets to the NFL level, and he's going to constantly face not only physicality where guys are going to be hitting him, but, he's going to have to move around in the pocket and make decisions and be accurate. And he's already shown at times where he's not pressured from short to intermediate. He has some accuracy issues. So Penix, I think, is going to be the one. Nix is a pick your flavor type. If he fits the scheme, that's why everybody's putting him in Denver. Sean Payton's got the kind of scheme that really dovetails with his game. Does he go 12 to Denver? Does he go to Denver later in the first round? I think that's more of the question. But those are the 6 with the big 4, and then those 2 guys I think all sneak into the first round at some point.
Charles Robinson with us here on Robbie and Rex Road. So, Charles, two things for you here. We've assumed for a year and a half at this point that Marvin Harrison is going to be the first wide receiver to come off the board. Do you think Neighbors has a chance to come off before Harrison? And when it comes to the first round, could we see 6 wide receivers? Could we see 7? How do you view how many, just the quality of wide receiver and how many we could see come off the board tonight?
Sure. Now that we're here, I doubt that Neighbors. There were times where it was fun to, talk to different personnel executives and kind of debate the merits of the 2 guys. But I just don't. I think Marvin's coming off first, regardless of, whether that's, I don't. If Arizona sticks at 4, if they could be there, if they move back, let's say to 6, if it's, if he. Weirdly enough, what I think has kind of happened in the process is I wonder if Rome Odunze out of Washington, like if there's a shock, I think it would be more like, oh, Rome is wide receiver too, and not Neighbors. And I only say that because in the process, the one guy who I've heard like no negatives about, where teams have raved every time they've talked to him. They love what he does on the field. They love that he went to the combine and did everything. Seems to really be connected to the process and like, look, I'm going to do whatever I got to do. This is, like the way he's attacked it. And then again, the interviews have been fantastic. I think Roma Dunze is the one guy that has really put some pressure on maybe Neighbors. And, and I don't want to blow this up. I think Neighbors has been fine and the process has been great. And his pro day was awesome at LSU. But I also think like some of the interviews, I think a couple of teams were kind of nitpicking him a little bit just in terms of the sit downs that they had with him. And, but again, I also think some of that's overexposure when it comes to these guys. It's in terms of the wide receivers stack in the first. Yeah, I definitely think 6 is a pretty solid number. Brian Thomas out of LSU is going to be interesting because I've heard at the last minute in the process with him, a couple of teams are like, yeah, we like him and we like this film. We like the stuff he does downfield. There's a little bit of a labrum thing with him that makes us a little nervous. So, I wonder if he quote unquote slides a little bit, if maybe the concern over a past injury involving the labrum is something that causes that. Worthy is another one that I think is a first. So that's 5. And then I think what's interesting is when you start to get down to that 6th receiver, it's a number of different guys who could potentially be in play. Like some teams tell me, like with Lad McConkey in Georgia, they're like, yeah, fringe first. Others are like, no, injury concern there, late second. Like we're looking at him as kind of a late second guy. Adonai Mitchell out of Texas. So I'll say this about Mitchell. A lot of stuff popped up in the process at the last minute. Bob McGinn, who was a longtime Packers beat writer, brought up some issues with whether Mitchell being diabetic has created problems for him, first at Georgia, then at Texas, in terms of availability, in terms of like kind of his mood and the way he, approached staffs or people surrounding the football programs. I don't want to like rubber stamp that, but I will say there was concern when I talked to teams. They're like, "Is this real?" And they're like, "Yeah, there's some of that there. Like there is some concern there." But I think the teams that really like him and like what he brings to the table, they go, we feel like he's coming in, he's going to be a professional. We're going to make sure that this is something that is managed properly. And, there will be less of an availability concern. And when I say availability concern, by the way, I mean like for practices during the course of the week, and then just sort of kind of how he functions personally and socially with people surrounding him. I think there were some questions with teams that was surprising to me, and I hadn't really asked that question before Bob brought it up. And I was surprised that a couple of teams definitely were like, yeah, a little bit of that. So we'll see if that causes him to maybe slip out of the first, because I do think he was definitely a guy that was probably very solidly in that 20 to 32 range prior to Bob bringing that up, at least for me. And then after that, I was like, maybe he's a little further down in the first than I thought.
So, Charles, there's always misinformation. There's always things that people are talking about going into a draft, and then you can look back. Like I look back at last year, and a lot of people were on this. Oh, the Colts love Levis. Levis is their guy.
Right.
So if I have a called shot today, my shot is that the Harbster has been barking about offensive linemen, and he obviously has to take a freaking receiver at 5, and he's going to take a receiver at 5, and he was always going to take a receiver at 5. First of all, what do you think about that? And if there's one thing right now maybe that stands out to you among popular narratives that you think is bunk, what would it be?
Well, first off, when it comes to Harbaugh, and I'll tell you what, I did. So I hammered the phones late last week, like in through Sunday, Monday, and then I wrote a draft notebook. And I'm like, okay, here's how I think here's this is a ton of draft information. And then for the first time in 15 years, I did like a mini mock on Twitter yesterday, or X, and I basically said, look, if the Patriots pick and stick McCarthy, which would be the shocker, here's how I think that like top 16 picks could end up breaking down. And after I did all of it, I was like, man, this is going to be awesome, because in like 4 days. I'll look back, and I was like, at the very least, it's going to be a litmus test of like who I can no longer trust. I'm probably like 70% of this is going to be totally wrong, or 80% of this is not going to pan out, and I'm going to be pissed off. And I was like, at least it'll be a tool to help me be like, okay, what happened here when we were talking? So yeah, there's a ton of misinformation, and I will say this about the Chargers though. He has brought up offensive line. It has affected other teams to the point where in like the last 5 days, J.C. Latham, the Alabama right tackle, became a very prominent. There's a very prominent belief that like the Chargers are very locked onto Latham. Some people believe the Titans really like Latham. Like if let's say Alt came off at 5, some people think the Titans would be more than happy to run the card in on Latham at 7. I trotted it out yesterday. I think it was early in the early afternoon. I said I put Latham at 5. I get killed by Chargers fans. They absolutely murdered me. And then Daniel Jeremiah comes out with his mock late last night, and oh surprise, Latham now is at 5. So I'm like, all right, well I'm not the only one hearing this. Clearly,
he's copying you.
I'm sure DJ's copying me. So it's. But yeah, I sit there and I look at it and I'm like, they clear like if they do this, and that's when I spotted them there. I'm like, if they do this, like, where are they getting their wide? They need wide receiver talent, and you'd be passing an elite at 5 to do this. Yes. Maybe even Marvin Harrison Jr., depending on how it all comes in. And it's hard for me to believe that. And so if they take a wide out, Joe, as you suspect, I'm going to sit there and go, yeah, I mean, I'm just dumb. like I just listen to it. Like I tell myself I'm not going to listen to people late, particularly in the 48 hours before the draft. And then I did, and I'm just a dummy. So I can't help it. In terms of other things that I say, clearly McCarthy is the one where you're like, okay, what if this guy, let's say May goes off at 3, then the Giants don't take him at 6. And then all of a sudden he's quote unquote sliding and the Vikings sit pat. And even though I don't think he's their number one target in a move up, he gets to 11 and the Vikings select him there. Then we'll be like, oh, McCarthy is like a mini slide. That won't really be true. It'll just be, oh no, some people came to their senses or whatever, and they weren't, willing to give up a bunch of assets to push him up the board unnecessarily. And he slid back a bit. The only other one that I'm kind of iffy on is like Byron Murphy, the defensive tackle out of Texas. I think it was Schefter who brought it up first. I've heard other people kind of echo it, the potential of him being the number one player, the first big defensive player off the board, which would be a surprise because Dallas Turner out of Alabama, the edge, has gotten everybody I've talked to says like the cleanest eval in the draft when it comes from a defensive standpoint. I think what happened with Murphy was Ryan Poles, the GM for the Bears, came out and said he just talked at length about how much having a sort of pocket penetrator in the middle of the defensive line, particularly when you have an edge, is such a huge deal. And then, I think some teams start to hear that and they're like, well, maybe Murphy's that guy that they want. And he would surprisingly become the first D tackle off the board or first defensive player off the board. Other than that, I mean, I don't know. Let's see if Knicks. Does one of these 6 quarterbacks. So what I told you about Penix, let's say Penix goes in the 2nd, everyone's like, oh my gosh, Penix, look, he slid. That wouldn't be true. All the teams I talked to put him in the 2nd. Some put him in the 3rd. So if he ends up there, that's kind of meets the assessment that what a lot of these teams were looking at when they were slotting externally the board. And they were saying Penix probably going to be a 2nd-round pick. But we're all looking at it going, mock drafts, these million mock drafts, so we're all putting him. So he must be sliding. No, he wasn't really sliding for NFL teams. They all kind of looked at him like this. But this year, more than any, and I probably felt this way last year, but this year more than any, I cannot believe the amount of mock drafts I saw. It's insane. It used to be every outlet would have 1 or 2. Now I feel like every outlet's got, in terms of individuals, now it's like NFL Network has 9 people doing mock drafts. And I'm like, are they just walking through the hallways, be like, got a mock draft? You got a mock draft? What are you do mock draft?
It's like NCAA brackets now. Yeah. Everybody's got a bracket, you know?
Swear to God. There's like an intern making copies. And like, hey, man, you got a mock draft? You want to get your mock draft out? Like, so, yeah. If they redid draft day now, the guy who's Kevin Costner, when he trashed the intern's computer, he would have been, the intern would have been pissed. He'd be like, I'm got to get my mock draft in.
Charles, last thing for you here. What do you think the chances are that we could see either a Brandon Ayuk or a T. Higgins move tonight or this weekend?
So this is, I mean, to me, this falls into the whole like misinformation stuff. The last 48 hours, I've gotten calls from a couple of teams that they're like, hey, what are you hearing on Ayuk? But it wasn't like a normal, it was like, they were clearly hearing that the Niners were like taking calls then on Ayuk. And it was like, where's he going to go? What's going to happen? Hey, is Pittsburgh in play here? You know, if he gets traded, then you're like, oh, clearly they got to the point where they're like, all right, open the phone lines on him. Let's at least hear what teams would potentially offer him. It's just weird that this is now where it's really started to bubble up the last 2 days. So I don't know whether to believe that or not, but there's definitely more poking and prodding from other NFL teams on that, especially specifically Ayuk, and who might be calling the 49ers about him. To me, he's on my radar because this has happened really starting on Tuesday. I think it was like Tuesday evening was when all of a sudden I started to hear like, oh, Ayuk's going to get traded. Higgins, you know, I think teams have known for a while that they could make their offers on T and that T wanted to be traded, and that, you know, if you want to come to the table with a second round pick, maybe that starts the conversation with the Bengals. I think what really changes the dynamic for the Bengals is the Amon-Ra St. Brown contract is Jamar Chase and CeeDee Lamb are like, they are going to nuke it. Like the idea of like $35 million easy, I think, for those guys. You know, Justin Jefferson, $35 million easy, probably for that trio of receivers. That's not to knock them on Ross St. Brown. It's just these three are definitely in a tier way above, I think, the next tier of guys. And so if you're the Bengals, you're like, there's just no way we can keep T. Like if we were to keep T, this pipe dream we had of getting him and keeping him at like 17 a year is not going to happen. And so I think I don't know if that changes their motivation. I think they'd still like to have him back in 2024 for what now would be a cheap 1-year deal. But yeah, I think that the money to me is very suggestive, and that the Bengals are going to have to listen on T, knowing that this is the last year they're ultimately going to have him. And I think it's just what kind of draft compensation would they be willing to take, and would they rather just have the year of production? Because Burrow does want him back. That's the tough thing here, is that Burrow really, really wants to have him there in place in 2024 and beyond. So that's a conversation I think they'd even have to have internally with Joe about maybe really we got to think about moving him.
Well, Charles, really appreciate your time as always. Looking forward to your coverage tonight of the draft on Yahoo Sports, and we'll talk to you next week.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. Take care, guys.
Absolutely. Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports, our guest on Robbie and Rexo. We'll react to what Charles had to say. Take your thoughts on all things NFL draft. 615-737-1025, our phone number. Robbie and Rex Road, 1025-1063, the game.
The road to the NBA Finals well underway, folks, and new customers on FanDuel can go on their own playoff run with $150. All you have to do is place a $5 bet, any $5 bet. You're going to get $150 in bonus bets, win or lose, to use during the NBA playoffs. Do a ton of things with that, of course. You can bet on teams, point spreads, money lines, over-unders, player props, assists, first basket score, all kinds of different things. You know, after last night, I will say, very impressed with Robbie's Miami Heat. I'm going to tell you right now, I'd go big on the Celtics in Game 3. I just think that they had a bad night. I'm sorry, Robbie, but I just think the Celtics are coming back strong in Game 3. Just go to FanDuel.com/Joe102 to get started. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA, and you must be 21 or older and present in Tennessee. First online real money wager, only $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued is now withdrawable bonus bets. Expire 7 days after receipt. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call the Tennessee Red Line, 800-889-9789.
Welcome back in, Robbie and Rex Road, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Got some tickets to give away to see the Pixies and Modest Mouse at Ascend Amphitheater coming up on Sunday, June 2nd. Be caller 3, 615-737-1025. Thanks to Charles Robinson for being with us in the last segment. Let's go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Welcome in Adam in Portland. Adam, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Robbie, man, I promise you, I have, all along thought it's Joe Alt or nothing, and I've changed my mind, last second. I think is actually a Brock Bowers moment today. I think we got to recoup a pick because we had to trade up to get Levis, so I think we're going to do that. You slide back, you get Bowers. He's already, hyped to be here. I think this is the way I look at it, man. Either you draft Joe Alt and you win 6 games, or you don't draft Joe Alt and you win 4 games. But why not get a good player like Bowers right there? So I don't think you can lose because we got so many holes, man, but that's ideal. The draft that I think is going to end up happening tonight. I think it's Brock Bowers.
Thanks for the call, Adam. Appreciate it. The Brock Bowers part of this, I've said it all along, Joe.
Yeah.
If they walked away tonight and ended up with Brock Bowers, I would not be mad about it. I think he's going to be a very good player in the NFL. Now, tight end is nowhere close to the top need that they have on the team. I would rather them walk away with Joe Alt. I would rather them walk away with Malik Neighbors. There are certain guys that I'd rather see the Titans draft tonight. But I've said it from the beginning of this entire process. If Brock Bowers ends up being their pick, I'm not going to be mad about it, even though I know there's some Titans fans that will be.
No, I agree. When I put Bowers, when I did my little big board the other day for the first day with 10 players that, that one of them, that's a lot of players, but that some of them would be if they move down players. But when I put Bowers in there were some people really angry with me in the comments with the whole idea of first round tight ends never pan out. He'd be, basically one of the highest paid tight ends in the league almost instantly if you draft him that high, et cetera, et cetera. And I hear all that, but I go back to what Dane Brugler told us when we had him on about how versatile he can be as a weapon. I just don't think he's just a good tight end. I think he's more than that. So I basically think the exact same way you do on that, which is I think the Titans would be better off with an Alt or a Neighbors or something like that. But I can't quibble if they go for Bowers. I think he might be ridiculous in this league.
So what did you make? So Charles talked about possibility of 6 quarterbacks in the first round. Talked about 6, maybe 7 wide receivers in the first round as well. And then there's the Chargers part of this where he's got him taking Latham tonight. You've got him going receiver. That to me, I think the first 3, I know people are talking about New England. I still think quarterback is for sure going first 3, and then we'll see kind of beginning with Arizona what happens after that. But the Chargers part of this is if I'm listing outside of the Titans that I'm obviously most intrigued by heading into tonight, the Chargers and what they do there is really intriguing because that could shape up what the Titans have available to them at number 7.
No doubt. And it's really interesting hearing Charles talk about going through the process and how he's gonna have a little bit better feel for who he can trust after this, right? Because the clear signals being put out are they're taking a tackle, and it's interesting that Latham, the fact that there's so much talk about Latham, now I'm wondering, okay, maybe they're taking Alt, So they are going to be fascinating, but I'm sticking with my called shot. I think they have to take a receiver, and they have great receivers on the board for them.
Yep.
Another misinformation test is definitely the Patriots McCarthy thing, because I have a hard time buying that. I think that it's the remainder of May or Daniels for them. And it's just, that's what you do. Cause Washington, there's some question too on what's happening at 2. That'll be another test of okay, here's some BSing the Patriots did when they really wanted whoever they actually take.
What would your surprise level be if Malik Neighbors is the 3rd receiver to go off the board behind Harrison and Adunze jumping ahead of him?
That's another fascinating situation. We talked earlier this week, Bruce Feldman's coaching confidential, and that wasn't just the college people. He's talking to NFL receivers, coaches, and scouts, talking hard about Neighbors maybe being wide receiver 1 over Harrison, and now Charles is bringing in maybe Adunze as wide receiver 2 over Neighbors.
Right.
So one thing that Charles, he didn't really go there with Neighbors, but he mentioned the interview. I mean, I think Adunze is the dude. I've said this before. Like, it's just, he lights up a room, and I think he's a special all around talent. And so I'm sure he destroyed every interview in a good way. And PK kind of brought up I guess Charles did bring up a little bit interviews with nitpicking with Neighbors, and PK brought up some negativity potentially around him a little bit. Is that enough to factor into this? I don't know. I think if Neighbors ends up wide receiver 3, boy, what a windfall for whatever team gets him as a third wide receiver in this draft tonight.
I said it earlier in the show. The scenario I'm rooting for is Alt available at 7, Neighbors available at 7, and what do the Titans do if they're presented with those two options? I think that would be incredibly fascinating. I mean, you can throw Adunze in there too if you want to.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think Adunze, same thing. And I think it's quite likely that it's Alt and one of those two guys that is a choice there. So, we'll get to see again, all things being equal, Brian Callahan said, but that doesn't mean they are equal. But all things being equal, he likes touchdown scores.
615-737-1025, our phone number. Your final thoughts on the NFL draft as the first round is underway tonight. What will the Titans do at number 7? What do you want to see them do at number 7 tonight? Do you want to see them move back? Pick more picks. We'll take your thoughts on all that. 615-737-1025, our number. Robbie and Rex Road, 1025-1063, the game. Final segment of the day, Robbie and Rex Road, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, brought to you by Chuck McDowell and Medical House Calls, Middle Tennessee's best medical care in the comfort and safety of your own home. For more information, go to medicalhousecalls.com. Medical House Calls, where the nearest clinic is your home. We are live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. The first round of the NFL draft coming up tonight. Joe, I thought it was fascinating to get Charles's thoughts on the T. Higgins and Brandon Ayuk part of this as well. Could one of those two receivers be on the move tonight? Before people ask, no, I do not think the Titans are going to be involved in either one of those guys, especially after they just paid Calvin Ridley. So I wouldn't expect that. And the other part of that is, like, if you want to add another receiver, well, then just, draft one right there at number 7. You could do that tonight. We'll see what happens on that front. But I would not be surprised if Ayuk gets traded. I said it yesterday at the end of the show, Joe. I'm calling it. Ayuk to the Bills. I have no inside sourcing, no reporting. That's just my guess. Ayuk to the Bills.
Okay, I don't hate that. I've seen some speculation on the Jags possibly getting in on that too. Obviously, they lost Ridley to the Titans, so that would kind of make sense. They need to help Trevor Lawrence more. Going back to Adam's call, I did want to address that. I meant to say something earlier. He mentioned, if they draft Alt, maybe they win 6 games. If they don't, maybe they win 4 games, but they could be better off. I think the thing about, and this is where it's a fascinating situation if they have the choice. And it's where I'm going to probably go back and forth all the way until they actually make a pick. It's not just about what you're going to win this year. It is also about keeping your young quarterback upright, isn't it?
Sure.
I mean, it's like if you don't come away with a tackle you can start pretty early this season, you are, again, trying to cobble together outside protection for some great NFL edge rushers for your young quarterback who you're trying to figure out if he's good or not, and you're trying to keep him healthy. And that's where it's more than just like, what's your bottom line going to be? How's that going to be affected? I mean, you are directly, and I know you're helping him with a receiver too, but just in terms of him being able to function, he has receivers, he has backs, he has tight ends who can make plays. 2 straight years, Tennessee Titans quarterbacks have had no protection. They've had no chance. I mean, really, when it comes down to it. And so I do think that has to be part of the consideration here. And another thing, Robbie, is like, as much as right now I'm like, if it's Neighbors, you got to go Neighbors. At Dunze, I tend to drift that way. But if you do that, when you get to 38, because there are a lot of teams out there, you go through the list of teams who could take a tackle, who would like a tackle, who kind of need a tackle. I mean, there could be a massive run on that position, and you could be left. Yes, there's tackle depth, so maybe Patrick Paul, if you like him. But maybe, I don't know, is Patrick Paul definitely there at 38?
Right.
And that's the thing. I mean, I think you have to factor that into everything, in your big board and your horizontal and your vertical and your need and your best available, but also what's coming next and how adversely affected are you, again, just in functioning and being able to give your quarterback a chance. If you don't get a tackle, you can start out of this draft.
Matthew in Nashville, who's a surprise player that y'all think could fall in the first round, and what's one shocking pick you think that we could see tonight? I think if I had to identify a person that I think, and you tell me whether or not this is shocking, there's a couple that come to mind. Number one, I think you could see Fuaga go higher than some people have him going, just based on the quality of prospect he is at right tackle. I would not love that pick if it's the Titans pick, but I think you could see him go higher. And I wonder, and I saw some people have this. I saw Charles talking about this in a piece he had earlier this week at Yahoo Sports. Could Xavier Legette find his way into the first round? That back part of the first round, 30, 31, 32. Like, can you imagine Legette to the Chiefs at 32? Like, that would be just the speed he brings. So, like, that would be intriguing to me. Like, in terms of a faller, I am interested to see where Bowers goes. He is Dane Brugler called him a top 10 talent. That doesn't mean that he's going to go in the top 10. But I think the other one is Fashanu. Like, where is Fashanu?
Yes, that was going to be my answer.
Yeah.
Yep, that was going to be my answer. And obviously, I go back to the mock draft I did this week with the other writers of The Athletic, right? I mean, he's sitting there at 16. And I know this is bunch of writers who cover a bunch of different teams, but he's sitting there at 16, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm going there to get him. Is there some reality to that? There is some Fuaga buzz. I mean, again, if you want to talk about a shocker, to me, Latham going 5 to the Chargers.
Yeah.
I mean, that to me qualifies. So, but I'm with you. I think Olu, and it's just really strange because with the information I have on him, I think he's right to me as a left tackle. It's Alt, and then I don't think there's a huge gap. And then there's Fashanu, but there's these other guys who seem to have momentum, and that's where it's just like, okay, so what is the momentum? It's the momentum of people whispering things to each other and the million mock drafts, that Charles mentioned. I mean, what is that real? I mean, a lot of it's not real. But yeah, I think that would be. I'm looking at Brugler right now, like where he just put out this. Yeah, so he's got Olu at 14 to the Saints. So, but maybe it's even could be later. And again, if you're the Titans and you do get an opportunity and someone wants that 7 and you can get more draft capital and then you can drop into the middle area and get an Olu, to me, that's just a huge win.
Well, thank God we're getting ready to find out. It feels like we've been talking about this for 5 months at this point. Looking forward to the draft, the first round coming up tonight. Make sure you're tuned in for our draft show here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. We'll see if it's Joe Alt. We'll see if the Titans go another route tonight at pick number 7, but looking forward to it as well. That's going to do it for us today. Chasing Big Joe is coming up next. You're listening to 102.5, 106.3 The Game.